Yeah, there is quite a bit to unpack there, but I just wanted to ask you something a lot simpler. What were you doing before that?
Then like lots of development work around BitShares, Timid, its forks. It's like I was a CTO of one of its forks.
That they had no idea how it was done was correct, right? And this is sort of this solves for data validity in that we know the data was or processed correctly, the computations were executed correctly.
Guys, what is it that mostly excites you for, let's say, 2024? What are you guys mostly excited about in terms of what you're working on currently, or perhaps something else? Okay, well, guys, first, thank you for agreeing to do this. It's finally happening.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Can we please start with some introduction? So Misha, perhaps take the lead, please.
Yeah, okay, it's like the quick intro, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Misha Komarov. I'm one of the founders of NIL Foundation. So it's got just NIL, okay? It's like NIL Foundation's organization which facilitates NIL effectively. What is NIL? It's like what's going on around that. It's like an Ethereum's it's like an Ethereum L2, which which serves as a sharding extension for Ethereum, which allows to keep the unified synchronous composability, which allows to keep all the execution environments together, which allows to effectively avoid fragmentation. And at the same time, it's kind of the way to, like with horizontal scalability, it's kind of the way to achieve subset transactions on ETH. So that's the thing. That's what NIL. That's
Yeah.
who am I?
Yeah, there is quite a bit to unpack there, but I just wanted to ask you something a lot simpler. What were you doing before that?
It's like before NIL. Oh, it was a long time ago. Before NIL, it's like before NIL. It was like before April of 2018. Okay,
Right.
Before that, it was like back in 2013, Bitmessage TPP implementation. Then like lots of development work around BitShares, Timid, its forks. It's like I was a CTO of one of its forks, and effectively, for almost 2 years. And worked a lot on the worked a lot around everything which Dan has done. And then it's April of 2018 and it's NIL. It's like everything happening with me afterwards was done through NIL.
Avi, take the stage, man.
Sure, yeah. Hard to compete. Misha is the mastermind at NIL. I'm our chief product officer. Before that, I was a venture investor at Delphi Digital. I led investments sort of broadly in the crypto infrastructure space. Got to work with dozens of really incredible teams and projects and technology and founders. And last year came on board with NIL and have been loving it ever since.
What does the chief product officer do at NIL?
Well, this is a good question. I think chief product officer or head of product is like, yeah, right. We joke that Misha is, she brings a coffee and I bring the pastries, right? And that's my CPO title.
Sounds about right.
But CPO is an amorphous thing. Really, I think it depends on what the organization needs. And, so for me, that means, I'm handling all kinds of things externally, helping, our engineering and research team, which we're a very heavy research and engineering organization, sort of, refine, what is the feature set and product requirements that, ultimately our end users are looking for. And yeah, a ton of other stuff. But all in all, a lot of fun. Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, there is NIL Foundation, which is kind of like the entity which is behind NIL, the rollup, right? So kind of like Ethereum Foundation in Ethereum, something this sort of dynamic.
Yeah, similar thing.
Okay, so I'm
Correct.
taking this directly from the website, right? Neo is a zk rollup that securely scales Ethereum to 60,000 plus transactions per second through zkSharding. So let's
Like,
start unpacking there.
yeah, it's like a little bit of unpacking right away. It's like
Yeah.
this turns into a rollup. It's like well, since this is effectively a sharded execution environment, and since it's like again, since this is effectively a sharded execution environment, and all the traditional rollups require for their DA layer to be Ethereum, so effectively this whole thing turns into a zk rollup if all the shards pick Ethereum as its DA layer, and which is like an optionality. I mean, they have an optionality in that. If they want, like, if a certain shard doesn't want to pay for Ethereum's DA and it's too expensive for it, and like they want not just sub-cent transactions, but like fraction of a cent transactions or something. If they want this kind of transactions, it means that I mean the whole thing kind of becomes just an L2, or like everything except this shard still kind of is zk rollup, but this shard it's like makes the whole thing just an L2. So this is a little bit of unpacking.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing.
But I think we need to go a bit down the
Yes.
line. Yeah. So
Yes.
first we have zero knowledge, which I think stands at the center of it all. Can you please break it down? Like, what is zero knowledge proof, and essentially why do we need it?
I'll give this a stab and try and give my simplest answer that I might be able to explain to my grandma, and then Misha, maybe you can tack in with a little bit more nuance.
Okay.
Zero knowledge proofs can be used to solve for privacy enabled applications, but the way in which we are using zero knowledge proofs and the way in which zero knowledge rollups use zero knowledge proofs is essentially for data validity, in that we can mathematically prove with near 100% probability that the computation that we run on a machine is correct, right? And this machine runs and executes the computations that we need, say for the execution shard in zkSharding, right? And that shard generates a proof. And now that proof can be generated by somebody else, right? As long as that shard gives that somebody else the appropriate information. But once that proof is generated, that proof, that very small packet, can be sent to anybody else across the network or elsewhere. And that receiver can verify that the computation done, that they had no idea how it was done, was correct, right? And this is sort of, this solves for data validity, in that we know the data was processed correctly, the computations were executed correctly, and we get a very nice form of compression, right? Because we can now send essentially a compressed packet of data along with this proof, and together we have the utmost certainty that all things were done correctly. And so this is how we use zero knowledge proofs.
So in essence, there is this chain which is new, which does all that, which does the verification. So I'm just trying to make sense of it in my head. So you guys do you go through the process of creating the proof, and then that proof is sent to, let's say, Ethereum's base layer, and they just take it as is without having to do all the computations that you guys did. Yeah,
correct. And there's a bit more nuance that I just want to touch on there. Yeah, sure. So in zkSharding, you can think of there are as many execution shards, right? And each shard is sort of a partitioned version of the global state, of the global ledger. And then there's one main shard. And each execution shard builds blocks, right, and generates proofs. And those proofs get sent to the main shard. And on the main shard collects all of these proofs from all of these execution shards. And there's a really interesting property with zero knowledge proofs, or some of them, in that you can have pretty much near constant size of the proof, regardless of how much computation you're actually proving, right? And so what that means is we can actually take many, many proofs of execution elsewhere and aggregate them together into one very small, very compact statement or proof that gets sent to Ethereum. And this way we effectively get verification of everything happening across the network with a single proof, right?
So a single proof which represents a package of multiple proofs, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And how does shard, because like 60,000 transactions and over that is per second is quite a bit compared to what the base layer is currently handling. So perhaps Misha, can you tell us why and how sharding is able to achieve that?
Well, effectively the compression is happening in here on two layers. It's like the initial computation and the initial data. It's like all of that is supposed to be processed on all of the protocol shards. So that's the thing. It's like if okay, well, if we want to dig even deeper, it's like we can dig into like one more way of like, where the compression happening. It's like, but that's, kind of, we will dig into that like a little bit after that, right? Let's just keep it with the protocol for now. It's like, yeah, I just wanted to mention about the compiler and the proof bucket stuff, but whatever. That's like, let's keep it with the protocol right now. So effectively, all the initial data and all the initial computation is happening. It's happening on all the shards. And the first layer of compression, the first level of compression, it's like of all the computation, effectively compression via state transition proofs, is happening. It's like when these shards process these computation, and the validity proof of these computation processed gets verified on, like the consensus shard, we call it. So that's the thing. So that's like the first thing. It's like the second level of effectively like, aggregation and compression of everything that's going on, like around the computation, is happening when the consensus shard verifies all of that computation is like on it. And then it's like, since the verifier of all these computations is also effectively, like a program, or an EVM program or something, like the EVM application, then this also gets compressed by the same mechanism as shards use. It's like, for the sake of effectively compressing that into a single proof, which verifies the consensus shard, so which effectively verifies all the shards. So this allows kind of like a large, like an enormous aggregation process to happen. So that's the thing.
So it's like, instead of all the information having to be processed by a single state, it gets broken down into
like
multiples.
Like a MapReduce. It's like you break it down, you put it together.
And let's talk about some of the technicals behind zk proofs, like, because you mentioned the compiler. So can you perhaps expand on that? What's the process of going through all those computations, which then produce a proof, and how it happens that someone can just take the proof without having to run the computations on their own? So yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's on me, or yeah, it's on me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. It's on me. So effectively, so how's the computation compression effectively happen? How the computation compression effectively happens, and what's the compiler relevance in here? It's like, first of all, it's like how does that happen that you don't need to recheck the computation? It's like, first of all, for the sake of this whole process to work, you got to define the computation somehow. It's like people, I mean, almost everyone except us, I would say everyone except us, almost everyone except us, tries to define this computation with a specific zk DSL over the library. It's like which they I don't know, like spend years writing these circuits. It's like we have similar zk DSL on our side as well, and we've done a lot of circuit writing on top of it. But it's like we eventually realized that we don't want to, sit down and put that put that piece of computation together, like, just waste a lot of time and resources on that. And no matter we still have to do that, in some cases, but we're eventually like coming to that point when we're not going to be required to define any computations like over zkDSL, but to define them over just like high level languages, so they could be translated into these circuits, which it's like effectively once the circuit is done, it's like it's effectively a description of a computation necessary defined in like a large system of equations, right? It's like over the finite field. So once you get, it's like, and once this I don't like, let's just try to maybe simplify this. And once this system of equations effectively gets satisfied by some particular vector solution, it's like all of these, it's like all of the data which was put in there to satisfy this set of equations, like, figuratively speaking, gets compressed by the commitment scheme into like, just hashed in like tree. You get the you get the commitment out of it, and you can cross-check that all of these computations which satisfy a particular set of equations, like these solutions which were correct by effectively just figuring out and checking the, like in our case, or like in some cases, like Merkle path from a commitment root, or in some cases it's like like a scalar multiplication based commitment scheme. So these they employ different ways of checking if the computation was correct. So this way you result in, because of the commitment scheme, you result with a tiny proof of the fact that the data which leads to the computation defined over like a set of equations. It's like it leads to the correct result. So that's the thing. And it's like this is why it works as a compression. So kind of, yeah, this is why you don't, and like and effectively the way to recheck this is you don't have to redo all these like data substitution, arithmetization once again. It's like you just gotta check like some Merkle paths, do some, it's like in case you do like effectively a lot of hashing with an inputs, all right? So if you use like pairing based commitment scheme, you gotta do like just some scalar multiplications, and you're good about that as well. So this way you got the proving complexity much larger than the verification complexity, so you don't need to redo all the computations. You don't need to redo them like from like again from scratch. So that's the thing.
So you don't have to redo them, but there is a way for you to verify that they're correct.
Yes.
And essentially you're getting the end result, which is
yes.
Yeah, okay. And let's step aside a bit from all the technicals, and because I feel like zk's have been the word of the year going in 2023. And Avi, this one is for you, but can you perhaps go into some of the potential applications of zk technology, and why do we need it in general?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of ways that we could take this question or this answer. So I think there's one clear product market fit for zk today, and that is this compression-like application of zk's, right? Where we can run computations on any machine as part of any network and have guarantees that that computation was run correctly, right? And this is sort of the core framework of zk rollups, right? In that we can run these machines, these single state machines elsewhere. Then we can post a little bit of data, essentially the output data, and a proof to a layer one, and have assurances and essentially security inherited from the layer one to the rollup. And there's a ton of demand for block space, right? So this is why zk rollups have such strong product market fit when we think of zk as a broad category. And there's still a long way to go, right? In that zk rollups, still their sort of transaction fees are hovering somewhere around 10 cents for very simple transfers. Most of that, frankly, is the cost of posting data back to the L1, but also a large portion of it, and a large portion we believe is going to be proof generation. So actually the cost of generating proofs, many proofs over sort of larger, maybe more complex computations. So there's still quite a bit of work there to be done, and ZK rollups, I think there's still a lot of design space to be explored, but there's other applications of ZK that are also really interesting, right? And I think we can broadly think of these as like stateless ZK applications, where ZK rollups are stateful machines. We can think of maybe stateless like applications of ZK rollups that do things for privacy preserving game loops, right? The ability to have hidden information, the ability for sort of privacy enabled identities, digital identities, also the world of zkML, right, which is at least for the most part right now a bit less about privacy, right, and hiding information, and more so about having guarantees and verification about the way in which models are run, right? And sort of core to, I think, a lot of the work going on in zkML is this belief that one day we will have agents that run autonomously across the internet. And when we're at that point, and when we trust agents to actually execute things on our behalf, we're going to want some sort of leash, in a way, some sort of guarantee that those models are doing things in our best interest. They're doing things based off of information that we trust, right? So the training data that we give them. And so, yeah, zkML plays a very important role in offering those guarantees, essentially that verification that the computations are running as we expect it to. So I think that's another really exciting area.
Just to clarify, by
yeah.
zkML, you mean zero knowledge machine learning, correct?
Right, zero knowledge machine learning. Yes, right. The most flashy, buzzy term you could possibly think of. But there's a lot of really good research happening, in that area. And then there's I think like another category of just like ZK interoperability and like verified communication between systems, and it doesn't actually have to be between blockchains. There's a really interesting application, ZK P2P, which is essentially this on and off, this trustless on and off ramp for crypto, in which you can send essentially money from a Venmo account to another Venmo address, right? And the system reads the confirmation of receival of the funds, and then generates a proof which can then be claimed on chain by the recipient for some sort of USDC or some sort of stablecoin, right? And so we see here there's this almost bridge. ZK is being used as a bridge to sort of communicate between two systems trustlessly. And I think this is like a really exciting sort of application design space as well.
Misha, do you have something to add to this?
Well, it's like let's say it this way. We've been running around. It's like during the last year with all the different sorts of ZK applications. It's like, and yes, Avi mentioned some of them, and we've been running around with some of the tooling we had and we have built for and with. It's like zkSharding. It's like effectively, it's like as like think we call as an application like for the proof market, like an application on top of zkSharding, which facilitates marketplace for proof generation. And the second thing, I mean, it's like the circuit compiler, the zkLVM of ours, the one where it's like the one we're pushing forward as the way to build safe and performance circuits. It's like instead of like doing a general just like generic purpose zkVM, it's like that's the thing. And it's like it's like I saw quite a lot of like zk applications during the last year. I mean, it's like starting with the notion of zk bridging we introduced like 2 years ago or something. Yeah, of course, like zkML extensions, it's like zkML extensions for the circuit compiler, which allow to do what like Avi outlined. It's like we saw quite a lot of applications around like Oracle-like work. I would say that it's kind of when these applications need to access some kind of specific data. It's like from within, like deep of ETH, from within some depth of ETH, and that requires either like that requires in most cases just proving the storage proof effectively. So this is the thing we also observed, and this is the thing we also like had some apps like on top of the compiler and like the whole tooling of ours. We also had not like just experiments, but I would say even some prototypes of zk games on top of this whole thing. It's like a team presented back in DevConnect in Istanbul. It's like there was a thing called zk Doom. So folks have effectively took on proving the Doom engine. Just to try to prove a speed run or something, and they even achieved quite a lot. I mean, it's like I'm not sure how things are going on their side, like right now, but anyway, it's even something. So yeah, I mean,
Okay, and allow me to take you in a kind of a different direction here and discuss what's going on in the market or in our industry in the past couple of months, especially when it comes to competition between different L1s. In the last few months, we saw Solana downright outperforming Ethereum in terms of active users. I think it was even daily transactions at some point. There was just this massive boom of activity on Solana. Many people are, doubting it to be the next Ethereum or even better than Ethereum. So this is an open question to both of you. I would really love to pick your brains on that. Do you think this is a thing? Like, can Solana, outshine Ethereum in the long run?
Well, this is a loaded question.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously building, with this sort of an Ethereum-centric roadmap, right? And I think the appropriate framing is not Ethereum versus Solana, right? But you have to kind of think of the Ethereum ecosystem, right? Of roll-ups and Ethereum layer 2s as a complete system, and then think of Solana, right? Because if you look at the Ethereum roadmap, by and large, there's this belief that execution is going to be outsourced to rollups, right? To other sort of execution environments other than Ethereum, and Ethereum sort of solidifies as this base layer, right, for data availability and for settlement in that and rather verification of this proof singularity, right, where you have all of these machines across different layer 2s that are generating zero knowledge proofs at very rapid speeds, and sharing data with Ethereum L1, as well as having it verified that those proofs are correct by and via effectively proving that the computations were done correctly. And this is sort of the complete picture of Ethereum, right? Now, we certainly believe the current state of Ethereum layer 2s, right, which is broadly referring to the roll-up universe, had some really significant existential problems that if they're not solved, I do think there is a future in which Solana or another sort of monolithic L1 sort of takes the pie, right? For developers and applications who are looking to use some sort of block space. Now, we obviously believe that an Ethereum-centric design is best, and it's namely because Ethereum is the most operationally resilient, layer one blockchain with some sort of programmability, right? And that you can write some sort of logic and have that blockchain execute the logic. But we think that the rollups have failed, and namely that rollups don't scale, right? And what we mean by this is rollups scale the TPS that is secured by Ethereum, right? They inherit Ethereum security, and when we look at sort of Ethereum security or TPS scaled by Ethereum security, we see that rollups sort of have this linear scaling law. With each additional rollup, you get the same amount of additional TPS up until a certain point where you hit some data availability constraints of Ethereum L1 itself. Now, the issue is these rollups are actually just single state machines, single ledgers. They're new independent blockchains, and they have no notion of the existence of any other rollup in the rollup universe. And there are a few ways in which, now that we have existing rollups, you can glue these things back together such that they are a complete system. And if you do glue all of these rollups back together, you get this really nice scaling framework, which is traditionally known as horizontal scalability. Now, there's quite a few complications in gluing, as you can imagine, like these existing things back together. There's a few sort of solutions to do this: L3s, zk aggregation, and shared sequencers are sort of primarily, the three ways in which, you might glue things, existing solutions to create one system. We've taken a slightly different approach of, well, given the technology that we have access to right now, and given how fast we've sort of seen technology move and where we think it's moving, how would you design a horizontally scalable layer 2 for Ethereum? And what we've fallen on is you actually go back to the old Ethereum roadmap, right? And you bring back execution sharding, right? And the sort of technology that we really make use of and lean on is real-time proof generation, right? Is the advancements of theoretical zk research that is now, sort of docketed for production engineering. And here we have this horizontally scalable sort of layer 2, this sharded layer 2, but we importantly maintain this single integrated developer environment, right? In that developers don't decide what roll-up infrastructure to spin up and where to host it and what are the security configurations. All of that complexity of achieving horizontal scalability is internalized to the protocol itself of zkSharding. And developers just deploy a smart contract, right? And they just they don't have to worry about it. The protocol allocates resources appropriately, it manages its state. And it's the same for users. Users submit transactions to one network, right? They have one address, and you get this very sort of seamless, hopefully delightful developer experience that, frankly, Solana has been able to offer, in an Ethereum-centric, scaling sort of framework, and you get the benefits of horizontal scalability, which sort of bring about low transaction costs, reliably low transaction costs, high security guarantees, and fast finality times. So this is broadly, how we think about it. And frankly, if nobody can figure out horizontal scaling for layer 2 Ethereums, or Ethereum layer 2s, then I don't think it's out of the question that Solana, just offers a better, developer experience and more scalability, and people and developers sort of, especially the next generation, they move to other ecosystems. So we think these problems are really important.
Misha, do you have something to add here?
No, it's like Avi kind of outlined all of it. It's like even it's like
Sorry.
it's like even what I had in mind might like prepared for this answer. So
Yeah, and he told me that my question was loaded. Okay, so let me phrase it in another way. Perhaps it would make things a bit different. Do you think there is an actual like objective competition between Ethereum and Solana, or are they completely different things? Because I get the feeling that the community is kind of PvP-ish on this, and some people seem to believe that they just, they might be serving the same purpose, but they're completely different things in terms of, let's say, Solana has its issues, which are, many people say, centralized. It just went off for like a whole day last week, whereas Ethereum, on the other hand, has the benefits of security and decentralization. But then if you want to, send $10 on a Sunday evening when there is an NFT drop, you have to pay $100 in transaction fee. So are they just completely different things, targeting completely different user bases? Is there some sort of yeah?
It's like there are like there are effectively two answers to this question. It's like one answer is in regards to like matters of compete for a mind share, and the second thing is in regards to the protocol design in general.
Yeah.
So it's like let's start with the protocol design in general, and that would explain us it's like the compete for a mind share, what's happening. Yeah. So the difference between effectively like like Solana's protocol design and ETH's protocol design is that effectively they are centered around different things. It's like Solana prioritizes consistency. It's like the higher the consistency, the better it is. It's like at any cost. It's like doesn't matter what. If all the servers are in place within the single data center, which they are not, as far as I know right now, but even if they are in place, not a problem. It's like the consistency. It's like the faster we go, the better it is. So that's the positioning. That's the positioning. It's like that's positioning. That's the idea behind Solana's protocol design. So this is one thing. It's like the second thing is like Ethereum people prioritize partitioning and availability. So it's like different choice. It's like the consistency is not the first priority, because I mean you gotta be censorship resistant, you gotta have like resilience, you gotta be like you gotta be credibly neutral because of all these things, and this is why you cannot prioritize consistency. And these are effectively like fundamental differences. So it's all about which kind of developers and which kind of mind share. It's like do you target with a certain design and protocol? So in the end of the day, it's like from I don't know, like what I can see, effectively Solana got successful amongst HFT people, or people who are who willing to get maximum performance out of the system no matter what. And Ethereum is getting mind share. It's like across people, and it gained mind share, a lot of mind share across people which prioritize security, it's like credible neutrality, censorship resistance on all these things. And that is effectively like that is defined by the protocol design. So the way you design the protocol affects which kind of mind share you get. And these are two protocols with two different designs. Do they somehow start competing for the same mind share in some cases? Effectively, they could, in case a performant execution environments start to appear on Ethereum, or for some reason Solana people decide to increase the amount of nodes from, I don't know, like 4, 5, 10,000, like whatever, to hundreds of thousands, or like to millions. If they start prioritizing this, it's like they would start competing for the same mind share. So effectively, with zkSharding coming to ETH, it's like ETH will start competing for the mind share of the fast execution layer environment. So that kind of creates the overlap. That does create the overlap. So yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Do you guys think there is a future where, assuming what you said about zk is coming to ETH and them being successful, assuming what Avi said about gluing the separate zk's together, do you think there is a future where it's kind of a future take, like the winner takes all, where there is, you know, do you think if Ethereum manages to achieve what you just said, do you think then perhaps it will win the competition for all mindshares?
That is a more tricky question, and that would require us to go deep into like more protocol design explanations if you want it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well,
Well, I have a question actually. When you say compete for mindshare, are you thinking of like global mindshare of blockchain developers, or are you thinking of mindshare of developers and users using Ethereum L2s? Because I think these are two sort of very different demographics.
more like, are people who are currently using Solana going to start to use Ethereum? Because that would be the, you know, the condition for one winning, because or perhaps will this discussion, because I feel this has existed forever, and the fact that people are labeling Solana as the Ethereum killer, and this has effectively stayed within the broader crypto community for so long, I think it's still something that, you know, people think about. And perhaps, is there an end to this?
Yeah. Well, I'd argue that I think in the end state, there's probably enough, there's a large enough market here, right, for both to exist, right, and both be, you know, very healthy, vibrant, you know, useful ecosystems, right? And I think, you know, to Misha's point, which, you know, put so well, right? There's sort of fundamentally different bases of philosophy and like how you think about, you know, the role of blockchains in society, right? I think there's this common like tweet or graph that sort of shows that all points sort of meet in the same, a similar end state where you have you know, kind of centralized block building and decentralized verification, like it's something like that, right? And you know, you can think of, you know, rollups as sort of, you know, similar to this, and you can also think of, you know, Solana eventually in its end state may look like this. But the paths for getting there or getting to the end state is path dependent, right? And I think right now there's probably been some leakage of developers from the Ethereum ecosystem to Solana, right? Because Solana has just offered a developer experience that, you know, gives developers peace of mind. There's reliably low transactions, and, you know, if you don't have really strong values about decentralization or censorship resistance or operational resiliency or credible neutrality, et cetera, then Solana looks like, you know, it really fits the needs of developers who are looking to build performance applications. And so I think there's probably some mind share maybe to pull back, right? But I think there's also quite a bit of latent mind share who's in and around Ethereum, who, if we don't solve the existing problems of Ethereum layer 2s, Ethereum execution environments, then they are probably going to leak out of the ecosystem, right? And then when you think about sort of newcomers, right, new developers in, you know, the next generation, you might call it, you know, when take the stance of a new developer who doesn't have the context and the history of Ethereum and the role that it's played in this industry, who maybe isn't as familiar with sort of, why decentralization and censorship resistant are important, and frankly just wants to build an easy to use, valuable application for end users. Well, Solana offers an experience that may be very appealing to them, and the current state of Ethereum and its layer twos is quite cumbersome. I mean, it can be overwhelming in certain aspects, right? There's so many choices for what kind of stack and who to run your infrastructure with, and what kind of security configuration you're looking for. So we think this is like a really major, problem that's solvable, right? With clever engineering. And this is really where we see these horizontally scalable solutions of gluing existing things together, or proposing an entirely new sort of first principles horizontally scalable solution like zkSharding can play a role in leveling out the playing field for those newcomers, right? Which is really, I think, where the battle is won. I think we're still, in terms of active developers, somewhere in the low 100,000s, maybe. Maybe I may be even off by an order of 10 there. I'd have to look at the recent Electric Capital report, but there's still a long way to go. There's a very long road ahead of us, and yeah, the playing fields need to be leveled.
Yeah, and perhaps to wrap it up, guys, what is it that mostly excites you for, let's say, 2024? What are you guys mostly excited about in terms of what you're working on currently, or perhaps something else?
Well, there are several safe things to say, and there are several less safe things to say.
Let's start with the safer ones first.
It's like we have the whole quite large development and releases roadmap ahead of us. It's like we would be required to get the test cluster, the public test cluster out finally. It's like after running some prototypes, some previous versions of effectively what became zkSharding in private for the whole year. I mean, what else have you thought Proof is powered with? So effectively, we have this thing ahead of us. It's like we got to make it publicly accessible. We got to make it publicly interactable. We got to make sure that it meets performance expectations, and it meets effectively public expectations. It's like we have went forward with a very specific number of transfers per second. We think we would be able to put out publicly as in the test environment. So it's on our plate right now to achieve that.
And what about the less safe things, or are you reluctant to speak them up?
Misha's excited for points. That's all.
Nah, come on, no, no points.
No. Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I just to echo Misha, I'm really excited for there to be actual scaling to take place at the layer 2 level for Ethereum, right? And that we actually sort of begin to glue some of these systems together so that we get horizontal scaling. We see sort of experimentation, research of new virtual machines that parallelize execution or take up, to utilize more of the hardware that's available to it, right? Which is another form of scaling, vertical scaling. And I don't think we're going to be the only ones who sort of push forth this, zkSharding or more broadly, verifiable sharding, provable sharding, whatever you want to call it, sort of idea. I think, many others might be exploring this as well. So true layer 2 scaling, I think that's coming this year. I think it's going to completely change the developer experience. I think it's going to sort of level the playing field, if you might call it, for sort of Ethereum's ecosystem and monolithic integrated blockchains. So I think it's going to be a really defining year.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this. Can you tell us perhaps maybe where we can find you on social media and yeah, and everywhere pretty much?
I mean,
Well, definitely follow the main account, nil_foundation on Twitter. That's where we do a lot of our messaging as crypto natives. At ETH Denver, I don't know if this episode is going to be out before then, but ETH Denver, we're hosting a side event on the 27th, Scale Summit. All are welcomed. George will get a registration invite, registration link in the description. Myself, you can follow me at the Jew for You on Twitter. That's you with just the letter U. Yeah, Misha.
yeah, I mean, same. It's
Where
like
can I find you?
it's like same on Twitter. It's like just Nemo the No One. It's like, damn, we gotta change the handles, both of us.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for this.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having us.